Good afternoon. I'm Joanne Alvarez, the Director of Student Success and Retention, along with Campus Diversity Lead. On behalf of the Diversity Council, I want to thank you for joining us today. The Diversity Council seeks to create a platform to begin dialogue on topics that can sometimes lead to uncomfortable but necessary conversations. As an institution of higher learning, we know the importance of having discussions where people can safely learn about other communities, cultures, languages, and traditions. Today's presentation on Do Native Americans Celebrate Thanksgiving is an opportunity to listen, learn, and ask questions. We ask that you listen to learn without judgment. And at this time, I'll have the audience mute themselves. And if you would like to submit questions, please respectfully do so. Or you can unmute yourself to be able to ask the question or submit questions into the chat. This is an opportunity to create dialogue, ask questions, and learn. As part of the Diversity Council, we hope to have further discussions and programs in a safe, open learning environment. So we ask that if you have any ideas on future topics, you share that with me or other members of our Diversity Council. A huge thank you to our Student Life Partnership, our esteemed guest, and you, the audience. And I would like to begin by introducing Janine Johnson. Janine, if you will wave. Janine is a Prairie Band Potawatomi tribal member, originally from Kansas. She has lived in Indiana for over 30 years and works as a regional program manager for a small nonprofit organization based in Carmel for 20 years. And then we have Michael Medawis, and you can correct me, please, if I have, say that again?
It's a long E.
Thank you. Michael's enrolled with the Little River Band of Ottawa, Indiana. He is Potawatomi, Ojibwa, and Ho-Chunk. He currently works for the Nottawasepi Huron Band of the Potawatomi as the cultural specialist in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And so with that, thank you for being here today. And Janine and Michael, I wanted to ask, and Janine, I'll have you start. I just quickly gave a brief introduction, but we want to know a little bit more about you. As you were introduced, can you tell us a little bit more about your name and or your identity?
Okay, my given name is Kagio Sekwa. That's Potawatomi for hunter woman. That's a name that's been in our family for many years. Our children are named when they're very young. I don't use my name in much of anything except ceremony. So I just use my English name for everything else. I have lived off the reservation since I've been about 11 years old. So I've grew up in Texas and then moved to Indiana, and I've been here a long time.
Great, thank you. What about you, Michael?
Yes, Buju Nigan Wewadan Dijnakas, Wawashkatuk Dochbia, Bodwe Wadami Odawa, Ojibwe Ho-Chunk and Dao, Gachnawa Zibidawa Nishnabe and Devon Douglas, Ngizi O and Dodam. I also go by my English name, but we do, you know, like she said, get our names when we're young. I wasn't, well, they say our names are given to us even before we are born. I mean, but it's you know, that just got to seek them out or get some guidance. But I just received mine a couple years ago, but my name means leader of the thunders. That's Nigan Wewadan, and that's Anishinaabe Moen or Ojibwe Odawa. Potawatomi is a little different. Their dialects are different, but they're pretty much similar for the most part. If you had a Potawatomi and a Ojibwe speak, they could understand each other. But my name is my English name, government name, if you per se, is Michael Medawis, and yeah, that's it for now, I guess. Is that all you were looking for?
Yeah, no, this is so interesting. So can you tell us a little bit of how your names are selected and how do you identify within your group?
Our names for the Prairie Band are given to us by our family. And so we have a lot of the same names used over and over through the generations. And that way we keep the names alive and in use. And then how you receive your name specifically depends on your family. What kind of ceremony that they want to go through to make sure that you receive that name.
Michael, did you want to add anything?
No, yeah, that's pretty much how it goes. Every tribe is different, you know. Some people do different styles of ceremonies. So yeah, it just depends on where you come from and like the part of the country. And I mean, they do it different down, you know, New Mexico area down that way than they do up here in the Great Lakes. But for the most part, the Great Lakes, they're all pretty mumuch similar. Like Ho-Chunks, Menominees over that way in Wisconsin too, all the way back over here to Michigan and down, you know, Illinois, Indiana. Like Janine, I think her name is, right?
Mhm.
She's down that way too. Yeah, just should pretty much hit it right on the nail as far as it goes back to your families, or if you really don't know your families, then you can go to like a respected elder or somebody that you know can do that for you and help you guide you in the right way.
Thank you. And so when you talk about some of your ceremonies, can you share a little bit about some of those ceremonies and cultural traditions that you have?
I mean, there's a lot. I mean, ceremony for certain things like naming ceremonies. That's a ceremony, and then we go to our or when a young adult female would getting ready to turn into an adult, they have ceremony for that, you know, things like that. Then there's powwows, but those aren't so much ceremony, they're more, I mean, there's the spirits there and the healing, the singing, the dancing. I am a singer, so I'm involved pretty much in a lot of powwows, do a lot of singing around the communities here and nationwide. I sing with a drum from Oklahoma, and I also sing with some Ho-Chunks. We have our own little drums around the area in Michigan as well. But if Janine wants to add, that's fine too.
We had, I remember growing up, we always had dances at my aunt's house. And I didn't realize at the time that that was because it was the center of the ceremony. We had the spring dance. And that was to prepare to plant what we needed to plant to grow that summer. And then during the fall, we always had the harvest dance. And to thank the creator for everything that we had harvested. And growing up, you don't think that's anything special because that's just what your family does. Having a baby, we used to have those naming ceremonies whenever there was a baby born. But you can't do that no more. You can't just take off in the middle of whenever and go have a big ceremony. Now we do the ceremonies once a year. And they picked of all days Mother's Day weekend. And so all the new babies that were born in the last year, then all these families would gather and share and have the ceremony to name the babies. And that way we can still continue on with the modern life, but still stay with our traditions.
And I had a question that just popped up from one of our audience members who'd like to know, at what age do you have the naming ceremony? You said when the baby's born?
Not before.
No.
They usually about 3 months, but it depends on when the naming ceremony is. My own daughter did not get named till she was 7 because I was in the military and I was traveling and we didn't live anywhere near home because home for me is in Kansas. And so she was 7 by the time I got around to getting everything I needed to get together to have this ceremony, and I was named as a child. And I have seen men and women come through a naming ceremony that were full-grown adults who were just finding their identity and finding their families, and now it means something to them.
Very interesting. And so Laura also asked, what age is the female coming of age, or is the male and female coming of age? I guess she's asking, are they different ages for male or female?
Michael, you want to answer that one?
Yeah, just from what I've experienced and stuff, that it's just the more or less the female when she's starting her time. That's when we in this area do a ceremony. It's actually called a berry fast, and they're supposed to not have any type of berry for the whole year, and that's just part of the teachings. And I don't have all the details on those, but that's just what I've seen as far as that on that question.
Okay. And audience members, feel free to jump in with questions if you have any. You can either unmute yourselves or throw the questions in the chat. I have a list of questions, and Janine and Michael, if you'll forgive us, at least my ignorance, there's a lot I don't know, and so we appreciate you willing to share your culture with us. It's exciting. And so a lot of people do want to know, and Janine, you talked about a harvest, a fall harvest. Now, is that something you would consider as your Thanksgiving, or do you share Thanksgiving? Can you share that part of your culture with us?
I've been thinking about this for a couple of days because I've really thought about this off and on for many years. Because I have so many friends who abhor Thanksgiving as a white man holiday, but they have no problem celebrating Christmas. They have no problem celebrating Easter, and I'm a little bit. I'm one of these. You can't have it both ways, people. It's all inclusive or it's not inclusive at all. And I look at and have for years looked at Thanksgiving as another ceremony to say thank you. I say thank you in ceremonies many times a year. That we get together. My family personally follows the Sundance way. Our New Year starts at the end of Sundance. That's in the middle of summer. I know a lot of pagan following people. Their New Year starts at Samhain, which is Halloween. I'm all for jumping in and saying thank you and celebrating it every chance I get. My daughter's very favorite holiday is the 4th of July. For her, the New Year starts as soon as when those fireworks start. And so I look at Thanksgiving as just another opportunity. Because if you really think about Thanksgiving, there wasn't a lot of harvesting going on in November. Not at the end of November. We're way past harvest at that point. So it's not really a harvest thing. It really is just a way for our family to say thank you, because most of my family back on the reservation, Catholic people. That's their chosen religion. And they still celebrate many of the native holidays or celebrations, the feast, the dance. That's all inclusive. If they don't separate one from the other, we just do everything. Anything that says thank you, anything that says celebrate, anything that allows us to eat good food and share with one another. And so for my family, Thanksgiving is a big holiday because it is a chance, because we're so spread out, that we all get to come together again, take the time, except for this year, but really to celebrate and not to look at it as a negative cultural thing.
Thank you, Janine. What about you, Michael? Do you want to share anything in that area?
Yeah, I mean, there's always two sides, to celebrate it or not, or because you can go back into, what happened back then, as far as, I mean, we call it historical trauma with our people, that they say it's in our bloods and our genes, and it trickles down to, us and even our future generations. But our people are very humble, and we're thankful. There's people that say we should be giving thanks every day, which our people do in our teachings, our beliefs are to wake up every morning and give thanks, take that sip of that water because that's medicine as well. And use our medicines as far as, giving thanks for another day, for our families, for our friends, not even just our own people, everybody in this whole world, just thankful. That's pretty much our beliefs, our ways of life are from the heart. A lot of teachings I get are from the Medewan Lodge, and that's it's not just Three Fires. I just had to bury a relative a couple weeks ago, and I was listening to one of the spiritual. He's actually an uncle, but what he was saying is there's 48, 49 confederacies within that lodge. It's originally called Three Fires Lodge, but so many people, they opened the doors to everybody who wanted to learn those ways. And but yeah, as far as myself and my family, I'm a father of 6, single, and in today's society, we do have turkey. We have things like that, and we cook a good meal and all your green bean casseroles, sweet potato casserole, whatever, potato salad, and I don't know if we celebrate, but of course we're gonna have dinner because the rest of the majority of the country or whatever. Even I think there's a couple other countries that celebrate it as well, just to because education is important, and I'm big on education as far as trying to have my kids stay educated, keep going as far as they can, or whatever else their goals or dreams are. Just try to give them a normal life per se, but we also still try to learn, practice our beliefs in cultural ways. I mean, we don't force none of that stuff hard on our children, anyways. Some do. I mean, some won't send them to school because they don't feel they're gonna get the proper education. I mean, but all I want is for the future generations to live good lives, and whatever their dreams are, just support that.
Mhm. So, one of the questions that Alan is asking, are there misconceptions about the first Thanksgiving that you think are harmful, Michael?
Yeah, I guess our people have the biggest genocide in history. Our people were killed, murdered. It's tough stuff, and what do you call it? Emotional. Some people get emotional talking about those things. We were at one point we couldn't practice our ways of life because it was against the law, and they took us from all of our language, our beliefs, our ways of life because we couldn't practice those or believe in those, and it was against the law. They took our names, cut our hair, stuff like that. We were forced to go to boarding schools where nothing. I mean, I didn't live in those times, but from what I've learned from my experience, it wasn't good as far as having our kids, our youth, be forced to go there, taken from their parents, just to live there, and go to school and learn the American way per se. But it's a little tough, sentimental.
Janine, did you want to add anything to that?
I think the misconception about first Thanksgiving are all harmful. These are things we don't teach our children because we know the truth. We know the trauma that was caused. Even, from then on, my daughter, when she was very young, we taught her the truth about history, and realizing that she herself is not a full-blood Potawatomi, my daughters have life, to teach her the truth, but teach her not to hate either side, because this is who she is.
Mm-hmm.
Her daughter is half Mexican. You have to tell them the truth, and the truth isn't a Disney story. It was not a wonderful time. Did the Native people come to that ceremony and help those people? They absolutely did.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the right thing to do, because that's what we teach our people. You don't let anybody suffer. You take care of women and children and elders. It doesn't matter what color your skin is. What happened after that was all atrocity. And those are the things that we teach our children. Just the truth about history. And so we can celebrate Thanksgiving for what it is. It is to give thanks to the Creator for all that we have, without getting stuck in that after that particular happening, all kind of things happened to Native people all across this land, from Canada all the way down to the very end of South America. It's tragic. We know that. We live it every day. It's written in our cellular memory. We understand that, but we can also tell our children the truth. And Michael said, we want everybody to live a good life from here. Know the truth and go on and be a good person.
As difficult as it is to hear some of that, do you mind expanding just a little bit more on acculturation and the loss of culture as a Native American people, group, community? How do you correctly say that?
I really can't address it very well. My mother took me off the reservation when I was 11 for a very specific reason. My mother saw a lot of us being held down and held back by the government, by being forced to remain on welfare and dependent on the government. And she just thought that was wrong. So she moved us to Texas and stayed there so that we could learn how to be independent people again. And so I haven't been home for a long time. As many years as I've lived in Indiana, I've not been on the reservation. So to speak as the culture for the people, but for myself, this is something we think about a lot, because even though we're not with the people, we're not away from anything. We are still connected, completely connected. And now with the internet and electronics, we see our relatives more now than we ever have before. I did go to boarding school, but I didn't go to the boarding school that my father and mother went to. They were in boarding school when their identity was being stripped away, when it was illegal to be Indian. And when I went to boarding school, it was run by Native people. I went to boarding school where all my teachers were Native, from various tribes, and it was a welcoming place, because then they celebrated culture. Nobody talks about that changeover. But there was a changeover. There was a time when going to boarding school was the worst thing in the world. And then there was a change, and it became a place of safety for kids who needed to have that.
Michael, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I guess from myself, my family, I guess you can say that pretty much the same thing. I'm not sure about my grandparents or their grandparents if they went to boarding school, but they moved away from the reservation, the rural areas to find work, and ended up I'm a city, born and raised in the city of Grand Rapids and suburbs, So I went to a public school which was pretty diverse, and I'm thankful for that, you know. So I just tried to instill, you know, with my own kids and the youth, you know, to just be thankful, be good to people, all colors of all races, you know. And there's a lot of hatred going on right now, but I mean, that's a different topic. But just just trying to, you know, live good lives in today's society, as far as, you know, working, earning to make a living. That's what we have to do. That's what we all have to do. So just, yeah, just, I mean, that's it for now.
You mentioned family a little bit earlier. Can you tell us a little bit of how family units are set up? Maybe now, maybe now it's a little bit different as to how it might have been set up in the past. Michael, you can start.
Oh, okay. Set up as far as,
In speaking to Lucy, who you all know, she talked about family units at this point in time, and housing, and how your family may live today versus previously, when maybe there were greater tribes or bands that lived together.
yeah, to me, it seems like we grew apart, you know. I've got relatives, you know, in Georgia right now. She's married to someone in the military, so she moved away. Actually have an uncle who was in the military. He's in Wyoming. His daughter married someone in the military, so they're still out in Wyoming. And you know, at one point I had relatives in New Mexico, but even in Michigan here, we moved away. Some go back to reservations. Some I went back to the reservation to work for a little while, but I came back home to the city because I had a better opportunity as far as work, and it's also with the tribe as well. So no, I couldn't pass up that opportunity to come back home and also work, you know, for another tribe. But yeah, our families. I mean, you know, our immediate families are pretty much close, but um, yeah, as far as I just think that families grew apart, you know, as far as moving away from each other.
Janine, would you like to add any more?
Multi-generational homes. Uh, my dad was the youngest of 12 children. And I remember several times moving in with grandma. And it was not an odd thing. That's just what you did. And then move out, something else, and then presumably be back at grandma's house. And there was always more than grandma and grandpa in the house. My mom and dad. And then growing up, they always had someone living with us. You know, the multi-generational thing was just what you did, you just took care of family. But yeah, as we grew older and the world changed, I haven't had any family living with me for a long time. And well, not too many of my family really want to come out to Indiana, but they did. There would be a place for them. You know, we talk about everybody is born in a clan, and so what clan you belong to means that you have more relatives than just the people in your tribe. If you are a Bear Clan person, then no matter where you go across the United States, when you meet another Bear Clan person, that's your relative. So you always had somebody to take care of you. But it also made you responsible if another Bear Clan wandered through your place, that they would have a place to stay and food to eat, and took care of each other. And all of that is just kind of going away because of modern society. And we don't, those of us who don't live on the reservation near the core of our family, don't have that support anymore. And we live on the reservation by choice, or we live off the reservation because that's where our parents took us. It's not a bad thing to be on the reservation, but we've learned it's also not a bad thing to be off the reservation. You just have to kind of grow where you're planted.
Makes sense. You talked about growing up in a multi-cultural, a multi-generational family. Can you tell us a little bit about the languages that maybe were spoken? And do you still carry those languages now?
In my family, my mother grew up thinking and understanding Potawatomi because she was raised by her great-grandmother. My great-grandfather, on the other hand, taught my mother that it was a white man's world. And if she did not learn and understand the white man's ways, she would not survive. And so he pushed her more toward education. And she quit speaking Potawatomi. So by the time we came along, she didn't. We know, we speak that language like Spanglish, where it's a few Spanish words thrown in with all your English words. My granddaughter speaks some Spanish and some Korean and some Potawatomi and a little bit of Ho-Chunk, just because those are the words that are in our vocabulary. But I never learned to speak Potawatomi because my mother never taught me, even though she herself understood everything and spoke it, but she was, in her mind, she was working for my survival. And I needed to learn about the white world and how to survive in the white world if I was going to be successful. And we work now, my daughter and I work now at trying to fit in some classes so we can learn a little bit about our own language. And there are a lot of fluent speakers out there. It's just not us.
Completely understand. Michael, do you want to jump in there?
Yeah, just add a little bit more about families. My grandpa and grandma. Well, my grandpa comes from one of, I believe, 8 siblings, and there was only one female. And they're the main family in the Huron band Potawatomis. They just kind of branched off to different names. Or no, excuse me. He was the only male out of 6 or 7 siblings. So the Medeiros name is pretty much that whole tribe, but they branched off because of all those females, you know, got married, different names, and it just branched off. So that's all my family. And then my kid's parent, mom, her dad was part of the big family, but they were in a small shack, like 1 bedroom, up in Harbor Springs, Michigan. That's way up northern part of the lower peninsula. But there was another big family, I think 6, 7. He had 6, 7 siblings. But it's just how it was back then. The families were bigger, and they all lived together, whether it was a small house or if it was a bigger house. But now it just seems like it's not like that anymore. But now I look at myself, and I have 6 children. So there's another. I'm trying to break that cycle. But yeah, that's just what I wanted to add to that.
Within your families, you talked about ceremonies, and I have a question about ceremonies that just came in. But before we go there, can you talk about the importance or the purpose of dance? When you do talk about ceremonies, are you talking about powwows? Is that something different? Can you explain that part of your culture?
Yeah, powwows are like a ceremony, and we sing and dance for healing and praying, and then there's other ways of praying by ceremony, and usually ceremonies, you know, involve like a fire and certain different. There's so many ceremonies that we're all still learning, because like that time where, you know, we weren't allowed to practice, a lot of it died out. So there's, we're all trying to learn those old ways, and a lot of things are coming back. Language is trying to come back. We're encouraging, our people to go learn your language, because once it's gone, it's gone. I mean, that's kind of part of my job as well as language, and trying to bring our ways of life back and keep learning. And it's just a learning process. Nobody's ever gonna know everything, I don't believe, but if we all work together, hopefully, we'll be able to save some of the stuff that has died out and is coming back.
Mhm. Janine, did you want to add anything there?
Well, Michael has a unique perspective on ceremony as a singer. I know a lot of singers, and there are as many different kinds of songs as there are. There's a healing song for a specific thing. There's a healing song for in general. There's a healing song for the earth and for the water, and you have to know so many things to do a ceremony. Usually, large ceremonies involve dance, because that's how you express yourself. There are small ceremonies where singing, and those singers have to be able to change lanes, as it were, depending on what kind of ceremony. There are ceremonies that use the big drum, and there are ceremonies that use the small drum. There's so much knowledge involved in ceremonies, and through your lifetime, you're only going to be a part of a few, because that's what your family does, or that's what your tribe does. And maybe you're lucky enough to know somebody from another tribe, another family, that they'll invite you in and you can learn a little bit more. It doesn't matter where I go, I generally feel very much at home in ceremony, because it resonates with who I am: the singing, the dancing, listening to the elders pray in whatever native language that it's in. I don't understand the word, but I get the sentiment, I get the feeling, and so I can be a part of that. But there are so many different kinds of ceremonies, and it really depends on what the needs of the people are, and if they can find an elder that can help them through that ceremony.
Alan Decker says, it seems to me that many of the traditional values and virtues of Native Americans are most needed in our country right now, like care for others, for the earth, etc. Do you agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And from what you're saying, it kind of sounds like those ceremonies, right, that you are celebrating other people. You're celebrating the spirits and the earth. Is that something that you would think is all interconnected?
Yeah. And men and women then are also taking care of very specific things in ceremony. Women are generally seen as the caretakers of the water, and they'll be asked to pray over the water, to bring blessing on the water, because water is life. And men seem to do most of the singing. Not that there aren't female singers and ceremonies that need female singers, but there's a protectiveness and a knowledge and specific medicine that men bring to the ceremony just by singing and hitting that drum. So we do ceremonies specifically for the earth. We do ceremonies for the air. We do ceremony. Anytime there's a need, if the people have a need, we'll do a ceremony for the people. But if the water has a need, then we'll do a ceremony for the water. Because we acknowledge that the Creator Spirit runs through everything: the air, the water, the people, the animals, and where there's a need, we're willing to pray. We're willing to have a ceremony and ask the Creator to bless that need.
One of the audience members asked, in your ceremonies, She'd like to know a little bit more about the clothing. For instance, she says, who can wear the headgear, or who doesn't? Is there meaning to the clothing that's worn, all the beautiful pieces?
Do you want to take that one, Michael?
Yeah, there's different sides to, you know, like especially today. Some I've experienced, some say really it doesn't matter what you wear. It's not about what you wear, you know, in there, because I mean, but then there's also the ones that said you should look nice, you know. It just depends, I guess, like again, what part of the country you're in, and who your teachers are, your elders, your families. But as far as like, if you want me to get into a little bit detail as far as the clothing, the way we choose it, and a lot of it has to do with, you know, our family, our clans, our colors. There's different clans have different colors. Families have colors, and then I've also learned, you know, through some classes and stuff and teachings, and that if you really don't know your families, or let alone know your clan, you can go, you know, to the pictures of your families, that, you know, to the archives, and see what kind of colors they're wearing. That could be a way of figuring out what clan you are, things like that. But I try to usually use my clan. My apologies, I didn't translate what I said in the beginning, but I didn't translate my name. But I also said I live in or reside in Grand Rapids, and enrolled at Little River Band, Ottawa Indians, and Eagle Clan is what I said. I'm Eagle Clan. So.
And is Eagle Clan, is that different than a tribe?
Yeah, different people from different tribes can be Eagle Clan. Yeah. Bear Clan, like she said, you know. Um, there's all kinds of clans. Raven Clan. I mean, fish. There's all kinds of different clans. Deer.
So I'm going to switch gears a little bit and just ask you, what do you all consider some of the greatest challenges for the Native American culture today?
Wow. Maintaining the teachings. On one hand, it has gotten easier to maintain the teachings if you have an elder who's willing to record video or audio, because there's a way to keep that now, as opposed to being. There was one time at a time when they would not teach me the language if I wasn't sitting right there.
Mm-hmm.
Now I can join an online class for my own language, but maintaining why we do things and how we do things. And a lot of times the how is not as important as the why. Why are you doing that ceremony? Why are you giving that name? Why are, you know, those are the important questions that they want answered. It's not so much how, because the world changes. There was a time, and I've seen this over and over, people will tell you, oh, you can't light a sacred pipe unless you have a stick match. And I look at them, I say, you know, Native people are not stupid. If we'd have had a big lighter back in 18 whatever, we'd have used a big lighter, because it's a whole lot easier than trying to light a stick. So you have to look at everything that you do in that kind of that perspective of where are you. We have to maintain our languages. We have to maintain our ceremonies. We have to maintain our clans. For a little while, it may not mean anything to anybody, and then all of a sudden, if somebody will remember, this means something, and we have to maintain. We celebrate Thanksgiving because it's a reminder to be thankful every day. It's not a celebration of what happened, you know, all those years ago so much as it is as a reminder of what's happening right now. It's been an ugly, ugly year for everybody. Thanksgiving becomes more important, but all of a sudden you can't even have your own family in because you don't want anybody getting COVID-19. Okay, so celebrate where you are. remember why you're celebrating. And so the biggest challenge for me is to remember to teach my child, my grandchild, why. Why do we do it this way? Why do you have to seek out an elder? Why do you have to look for somebody who knows what they're doing and not just believe everything you see on the internet? And at the same time, take full advantage of the internet. If you're going to sit down and really teach you your language and you're way out there in southern Indiana and they're way up in Wisconsin or out in Kansas, take advantage of it. So I think maintaining is going to be our biggest challenge.
Maintaining. Would you agree, Michael? Did you want to add anything different?
Yeah, I guess she kind of said that the pandemic kind of helped her in a way that the language is available to her now. And I was talking to, our department, well, my supervisor, and she mentioned that because what we do, weekly we post a video of teachings or, language or something like that. But we might make this the new norm when we are able to gather again and come together, eat together, learn together. We might just hit that record button and still record it so that it's available to our people that's miles away, So in some ways, this pandemic is helping. I guess that's a plus for not just our people, everybody who else this might have hit in that, area.
Yeah, there have been some great challenges with COVID, but you can also look at some of the positives that have come out of it. And not only the recordings for somebody across the state, but for future generations. That is something that you could possibly have as well. Love it. Love it. It looks like there's a question here in the box. She says, what would be an appropriate way to talk to young children ages 3, 4, 5 from diverse backgrounds here in Northeast Indiana, refugee populations, immigrant and farm families, the various Amish communities, urban, suburban, English language learning, etc., about the historical story of Thanksgiving and the present reality of the Native American experience? I have student teachers working with these children and want to guide them in an appropriate direction. Where would we find resources for children that are accurate?
I don't know. And what I taught my own daughter was when she was young, that this is a ceremony. Thanksgiving is a ceremony. And in this ceremony, we are saying thank you. And if it hadn't been for the schools, we would have never learned about pilgrims. Because we didn't talk about pilgrims. We just talked about this is another ceremony. This is how we say thank you in November for everything that we have. Thank you for our family. And that's what we concentrated on. And it wasn't until she started learning about the first Thanksgiving and pilgrims in school that I had to add anything to it. And I never looked at references. I just told her the truth as I knew it. For teachers, I remember being asked to come to my daughter's 3rd grade class. Can you come in and teach us something? I said, oh, sure. Well, can you come in dressed in your Indian clothes? I said, yeah, no. It's not a show. I'm not a clown. It's not a costume. I'm going to come to you how I always come. And it was in a pair of slacks and in a shirt. And we made a medicine wheel out of colored paper. And we talked about the circle of life because at the time, The Lion King was big. So they all knew the song. So they understood what I was telling them about the circle of life and how every direction was, how every color had a meaning. And then those meanings differ from tribe to tribe. So you can't even really say that there's one thing you can teach the children. You really have to be very specific. And I would say for little kids, you don't stress so much the first Thanksgiving, what may or may not have happened, unless you know the absolute truth. But you might want to just move towards something that is more along the lines of let's celebrate each other. Let's be thankful for each other. that's what it means now.
Wow. Michael, sorry, you left me speechless because these are things that I don't ever have to think about, right? And so the question was posed, you know, in talking to your children, how do you have that conversation? So just thank you for making us reflect, right? Michael, did you want to add anything?
I think since it's just, you know, kids around that age, you have to get into, you know, too much detail or the truth, quote unquote, the truth. Just, yeah, I mean, just keep it simple, keep it basic. The name is Thanksgiving, so let's just be humble, be thankful for, you know, not just myself, my family, just everybody. Just be thankful for everybody. You know, be thankful for life, thankful for the water, thankful, you know, for the air, thankful, I mean, just for everything. Just keep it simple, keep it basic. As far as resources, I have none either.
Cynthia, did you want to ask anything more or different? That was a great question.
No, I'm just so grateful to hear this information and this perspective today. And it really makes me go back and think about all of my years of teaching kindergarten and how I maybe didn't portray this as accurately as I should have.
Yeah, thank you. Does anybody else want to add anything or ask anything? We have about 15 minutes and I don't want to hold up the conversation longer than it needs to be. Alan, I saw you on mute, and so I wondered if there was anything that you wanted to.
Yeah, I just have one question. What are some of the greatest needs within the younger generation of Native Americans, and how can we help?
Think about my daughter, and I have to think about my granddaughter, and their needs are to be okay with who they are, without being portrayed as an object, a historical object. I mean, a lot. Native people are invisible people to most of the world, and we matter to ourselves, but apparently we don't matter to a lot of the rest of the world. So we have to, I have to teach them that we do matter. Their culture matters, their language matters, the songs they sing, ceremonies they go to, the words that they use. But at the same time, we can't get so caught up in the fact that we are invisible that we become angry and hateful. It's just one of those things that we've talked about all her life. And my daughter's in her 30s now, and her daughter is 6. And so we just continue the same thing. Teach my granddaughter that it doesn't matter whether you call me Granny or Gaga, which is the Ho-Chunk word for grandmother, or Hamani, which is the Korean word for grandmother. It doesn't matter what you call me. You just use all of those words because you are all of those things and you matter no matter what language you're speaking in, no matter what, you know, how you're expressing yourself. And when I move her into the Native ceremonies and circles, I just want her to be comfortable. I know that she belongs there. And when she's sitting in a college classroom, I want her to be comfortable and know she matters and she belongs there. And so I think for us, what they need is for people to understand that they're okay just who they are, you know, what their skin color is, what language they speak, first, second, third, or fourth, just to be comfortable with it and to be accepted.
You know, Janine, I didn't expect to get emotional just thinking about basic human rights, right? That's you don't want anything different for your child and your grandchild than anybody here.
Right.
And so thank you for sharing that. So with that, I'm going to ask if anybody else has any last thoughts, questions that you would like to ask. Janine and Michael, if you have any last words that you would like to share, now is the time, because we thank you for being here. And so we'd like to hear any concluding thoughts.
Thanks for having me. I really don't have anything. I guess I can add a little bit to his question as far as the needs of our youth. I guess just be there, and then on top of what Janine said, you know, let them know it's okay and that they matter. And within our own tribes, before, my title right now is cultural specialist, but before this I was working with the youth. And so just encourage, you know, our tribes or even organizations, you know, there's also Native organizations within cities, bigger cities. There's usually a center, but just have all those resources available, you know, a youth department that's there. And then usually the cultural and youth work together, you know, to make sure that, you know, they're there for our youth, you know, by choice. Of course, we don't want to force anything on anybody, but yeah, just be there for our youth, as far as everybody too, you know, especially, you know, growing up in a city, that, you know, diversity is huge, and I'm all about diversity as well. And just I think that's it right now.
That is great, Michael. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you, Janine, for sharing. Thank you for being vulnerable and willing to talk about your culture. And we thank all of you as the audience. You had some wonderful questions that you posed. And we appreciate that you're here wanting to learn and have greater knowledge of our fellow human beings who just want to be seen, right? So thank you. We appreciate each and every one of you. And we look forward to talking to you again.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.